How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to episode 3 of the Prairie League Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Brethauer. I'm running solo this week because my co-host, Carolines, is off. But we still have a jam-packed show with a lot of good information coming up, especially if you have interest in playing softball after the GPLS. We're going to be talking to the president of the Western Collegiate Softball Association, Randy Plishka, and getting an idea of where ladies can go after they're done playing GPLS and when they should get started. So there's a lot of good information coming up, so hope you stay tuned. We do have a little bit we want to discuss about before we get into our interview. We want to talk about what we did a little bit about last week. We're not going to dive too far back into it, but I just want to talk about the response we got from people, and it's exactly pretty much what we hoped for. We were hoping that people would just take something out of it. And of course, I'm talking about the transgender athletes playing in softball. And if you could kind of tell through our voice and how we were talking, it was definitely a difficult subject to talk about and to come on here and have a conversation about, because we know there's tons of opinions, there's tons of people's feelings involved, and everyone has some kind of different thoughts on where, Softball Canada should be taking this. But really what we are hoping for is that people would go and educate themselves and at least be open and think more about what was happening in this world, not just in the softball, but in Canada in general. And we really think we did a lot of good comments from it about people thinking that they haven't actually thought about this before, and that this was kind of opening their eyes to something new, and that, it's going to be part of our future. So we need to start thinking about it and talking about it. And we want that conversation to continue. So if you still have any more comments, just keep adding them to our Facebook page, onto the Instagram account, Twitter, anywhere. Let's just keep this conversation going. So if you do have anything else to add, don't be afraid. Message me. My Twitter account is @AndrewBrethauer, or, put it out straight on the GPLS. We're more than welcome to. If you want to, message me on Facebook as well. I'm open to comments. I'm open to having this conversation because I think it's important, and it's something we're going to have to deal with sooner or later. We might as well start talking with it now. And so one of the parts we did talk about was about how everything kind of gets accepted in sports, and sports is a great place to have things, and we're talking difficult things happen, and sports can be a great rebounder, and no more have we learned about that than this week. And I want to touch on it a little bit because I really think it needs to be talked about, even though it's not softball related. I'm talking about what happened last week in Humboldt and with their junior A hockey team, and the difficult situation and tragic situation that happened with the Humboldt Broncos junior A hockey team. I think I speak for everybody in the GPLS, I think anywhere, when I say our hearts, our thoughts, our prayers go out to them, their team, the family, anybody in that community who's been affected by this tragedy. I've covered the Alberta Junior Hockey League myself, the junior A level, and I know what these players go through on a day-to-day basis for the love of the game, for wanting to play hockey day in and day out, going to school, working, getting on the bus, traveling hours between, cities, much as like the ladies do here in the GPLS, but every single weekend getting on that bus and heading to, far places just to play a game that they love. And to see what happened here, it definitely has hit close to home for a lot of people. I think you realize just how close the sports world becomes. The outpour of support has been absolutely amazing. There's nothing else you can say about that. To think that they started off asking for $1 million, which, that's $1 million. To think about asking for $1 million, and today, not even a week after, it's already over $7.5 million, and they've gotten support, and it's from everywhere. It's across the world. It's not just something that's a Saskatchewan problem. It's a world problem that everyone has taken up and put on their shoulders and really helped this community. And it shows you right there the power of sports. And I hope people understand that, is that sports can be such a powerful thing. And whether we're talking, transgender athletes, or we're talking tragedies such as what happened in Humboldt, we can all rally around sports. And like I said again, I send my thoughts, my prayers, and my heart goes out to everybody, because I know what those guys went through to play the game they love. And I covered them for years, and they were after playing, like I said, playing for the love of the game, playing for scholarships, playing for playing the game. There's really not much more you can say. It's there's so much goodness that's coming out of it, if you can look at it that way. And I know that's a tough thing to say, especially when you lose so many people. But there's been so much good and so many people rallying, and I'm really hoping that the SJHL continues on with their playoffs, and that team represents against Manitoba, and they go on and someone plays for the RBC Cup, because I think moreover this year, the national championship, the RBC Cup, for those who don't know, it's a national championship for Junior A. It's going to mean so much more because of what happened. And I hope that they're going to honor them by playing that tournament, because it needs to be played. And it's also, I hope it's a reminder, and I really do, and I'm not preaching on this, but I'm hoping it's a reminder to parents, to players who drive. GPLS does a lot of travel. It's a lot of travel to go from, southern Alberta or, Saskatchewan to Alberta, and there's a lot of travel involved. All we ask is people just stay safe and just make sure you get to the tournaments and you get to your games and everyone's happy and having fun and having a good competition, because that's what matters. We're all in this for the love of the game. We're all doing this because we love sports, and we just want to make sure everybody is safe. So keep them in your thoughts, and keep that when you're going forward, because it's, what can you really say? It clears a tragedy that has affected so many people, and it's so great to see the outpouring of support across Canada and across the world. So we're going to move on, and we're going to get right into our interview today. As I said, we talked with Randy Plishka, the president of the Western Collegiate Softball Association, and what the Western Collegiate Softball Association is offering is the future now for the ladies here of the GPLS and women across Canada and the world who would like to continue playing softball. And, there is the options of going down to the United States and playing in the NCAA, which is, is a great option. And there's plenty of GPLS players who have done that as well. But now what the WCSA is offering is a closer to home option for players who maybe want to stay in Alberta or stay in Saskatchewan and still play softball beyond, the U18, U19 years, especially when you're going to university or you're going to college. So what the Western Collegiate Softball Association has done is got together and built, right now they have 5 teams and they play each other. It's kind of the similar schedule in terms of GPLS. They play weekends, they travel, there's a lot of good competition, so much so that there's national championships now in women's softball between other schools in Ontario and BC, and there's national championships, and a lot of the national championships have come from the Western provinces. So there is an opportunity beyond GPLS, beyond your local rep teams, to go and continue your softball career while you're earning your education, while you're working towards your degrees or your diplomas or your field. So this is an interesting conversation with Randy, where he kind of tells you how you get involved and how you go about getting, basically scouted by one of these teams, and how you get that whole ball rolling. And a lot of it is going to be actually on you to go out there and make those first contacts. So I'll let Randy describe this for me, and let him tell you how you get involved in the Western Collegiate Softball League. So here we go with Randy from Western Collegiate Softball. So let's just, start from the very beginning. How did this league and this association come about, and why was it started?
History goes back to about 2002. There were a number of people in the Alberta area that were wondering, what do we do for the kids after high school? Because a few would go down stateside on scholarships, but the vast majority didn't have a place to play ball after they finished high school, and they wanted to create a league, and that's where the Alberta Intercollegiate Women's Fastball Association was formed. And the initial schools were SAIT, University of Calgary. There were teams, University of Lethbridge and Lethbridge College, Red Deer College, Grant MacEwan, University of Alberta, Olds College was briefly in, Medicine Hat College was briefly in the league. And over the years, some schools dropped out, some came in, And it kind of morphed into same thing started happening in Saskatchewan about 2005, 2006, and the universities of Regina and Saskatchewan both approached us to join the league, and they played exhibition for the first couple, and then we had a combined playoff by 2008, 2009, and the league has steadily adapted its rules, and we've still had a few bumps along the way. The University of Alberta dropped out, Grant MacEwan dropped out, University of Lethbridge dropped out. But, the University of Saskatchewan and Regina programs are both very, very strong. And then a few years ago, we added Briarcrest College, and the institution there is really behind the program. So we've got 5 stable teams right now, and we're looking forward to the future for hopefully a few more schools come in now.
And it seems like, as you mentioned, most times in a lot of women's sports, they have to go down to the States, or there's not a lot more past, say, their representation teams. Why was there that huge need, I guess, or what was the reason why you guys wanted to fulfill that need?
Well, I wasn't part of that. I didn't get involved in the program till 2010, so I just look at the fellows that started up the program, and I only talked to Len Trottier years ago about this, but they just were concerned that too many young women quit playing, that there was no incentive. And they just said, fine, we're going to make this work one way or the other, and I appreciate their vision. It took them a heck of a lot of work, and then they realized the same thing was happening down east, both in the Ontario colleges and the Ontario universities. So all of a sudden they're starting to say, hey, we're not by ourselves here. And so they started an exchange of ideas, and it's led to the fact that we've got about 26 schools now in Canada that are playing women's ball at the university or college level. So it's growing, and there are schools interested, and hopefully it continues into the future.
And you're seeing, I guess, the continued development of these young women, and especially when they go to the college, and you're seeing national championships as well. I know you've looked at the list, and you can see from the Western provinces, there's a significant amount of representation of schools from this league winning national championships, or at least medaling in the top 3.
Exactly. The University of Saskatchewan, for example, has been national champion, I don't know how many times, but they have been a number of times, and University of Regina has been knocking at the door, and University of Calgary has gone to every national championship since the initial one in 2008. They've been knocking at the door. In 2011, they took home the silver medal, so that's good. But yeah, every year, right in the thick of things, the national final last year between Western and University of Saskatchewan was a 1-run game. At the end of it, it was 5-4. The previous year, it was I believe, a 1-0 game between those two teams again. It just went the other way, and this time University of Saskatchewan won that one. So we hold our own against not only the Eastern schools, but any time that we play against U.S. opponents, exhibition games, we hold our own.
I guess we're looking at, if the girls want to get on these teams and they want to get recruited or get noticed, when should they start maybe looking into contacting schools, or how do they go about the whole recruitment process and getting noticed and all that goes into finally making one of these teams?
Simply put, contact us. As you were saying earlier, we've got the website. The contact information is there. Just look at the tab on the website, and it's got the contacts. I've got the coaches' emails listed there. By all means, start the process early. Grade 10, grade 11, isn't too early. Let us know that you're thinking about our school and or that you're curious what our school can offer. And each of the 5 schools right now offer various different programs. SAIT's a technical programs. Briarcrest is a small Christian school, so if anybody wants a religious education, that niche is there. You've got the other ones are universities and the full gamut of academic programs available to them, but we all offer ball and a high level of ball. So by all means, start the process. Contact us coaches and say, hey, coach, I'm interested in playing ball at the college level after grade 12. What do I need to do? And we'll say, hey, what grade are you in? And, send us your travel schedule. We'll come out to hopefully and be able to watch you play in a tournament or two. I know all the coaches try to get out and watch players throughout the year. I know George Edwards leads the forefront for state. He's probably at 7 or 8 tournaments every year with his tent and that, talking to players, handing out information about SAIT and Mount Royal, and he is an ambassador to the rest of the schools, because if you come up and say, hey, I'm interested in the University of Calgary or University of Regina, he'll put you in contact with the coaches, whether it's Corey at the University of Saskatchewan or Andy at Regina or now Sydney with Briarcrest or Neil at the U of C. He'll put in touch. I know I've gone every year for the last 5 years to Canada Cup on the coast. I've attended GPLS events in the past, typically All-Star Weekend. Carly, when she was head coach at Briarcrest, would come to Canada Cup and hit a few tournaments in Saskatchewan. We're always around, and so if a player sees us, we're very approachable. Come and talk to us and start the ball rolling.
So like you said, the most important thing is for them to take the initiative and get that ball rolling and start the process.
I see, and I talk to probably, 500 to 1,000 young players every summer, and I'm sure the numbers are similar for the other coaches. It's tough for us to see everybody. So if you come and approach us, you're automatically on our radar. And we'll start saying, okay, when's your next game, or all of that. We've always got needs on our teams, pitching and catching always. But all the other positional players, we're always looking for good athletes. And, if you start the process, when you're in grade 10 or grade 11, even grade 12 isn't too late, but, it narrows the time frame, that window that we can actually watch you playing with your own team, because that's when you're the most comfortable, is playing with your own team. And we like watching you when you're comfortable, because we see you at your best. Occasionally we see you at your worst too, but that'll tell us the story of how good of a player you are, how do you handle adversity, et cetera, et cetera. So we just like the opportunity to watch you.
And I'm assuming just from recruiting, you're looking at more than just skill on the field, and what they can do at the bat is kind of like what you said, how they handle adversity and character, and all of that goes into recruiting as well.
Character is huge. None of us want any prima donnas. A player can't be so full of themselves, that I'm the best thing. No way. That player isn't going to get more than a cursory look from me. Get me a player that works hard, hustles on and off the field, is there, cheering on their teammates, doing whatever, bounces back when they make a mistake, is there to encourage their teammates when they, muff a play. Just be the player that everybody wants, on their team, that you go into battle with. And, character is so important. And, additionally, I've got to keep saying it, keep your marks up. You've got to be strong academically. There's not a school in the league that, you're going to get into if you're a weak student. You have to keep your marks up to make the admissions. We typically can't pull any strings to get you into the school if your marks aren't there.
Well, there's a reason they call it a student athlete. So it's pretty simple. When they're in this process and they're going through the recruiting, I guess, how would you tell them to deal with knowing that someone's watching them and knowing that, their future beyond their rep teams is on the line based on somebody watching them in a game? Or is that something they should just put out of their mind and just play their game?
Yes and no. They have to be aware. Somebody is always watching them. And that's whether that's on the ball field or away from the ball field. Prospective employers are going to be watching you the moment that you walk into an office for a job interview in the future. Conduct yourself, in your life as if somebody is always watching you. And if you live to that standard, you're going to be fine. Background. We recruited at the University of Calgary a young lady, and I sat behind the backstop, and I had the camera, and I was filming her. She knew it. We had an appointment, between games to talk. She knew I was front and center. She put it out of her head, and she had a great game. Some people, pressure gets to them, but we need players that can respond when people are wanting them to come through in the clutch. And, that's what a big game player is. So if you can't stand a coach watching you or imagining that somebody is watching you, you're going to have a hard time in the future.
And so what can players do while the season's going? Because you maybe not be able to see them as much. Can they be sending in videos, or should they be sending you guys things, or just keep reminding you?
Video is great. Short one, by all means, shoot a bunch of film. Get game clips, etc. But edit down a skills video to 3-4 minutes. I watch hundreds of videos over the course of a season, and they get tedious after a while. I want to watch your mechanics. So when you send me a video of your batting, give me 6 to 8 good swings, and don't edit it. Have whoever's throwing you the ball, or whether it's off of a machine, don't edit it. And for whoever is helping the process, don't rapid fire the balls. It doesn't happen in a game, so you're not helping the player any by firing the ball every 4 or 5 seconds. I want to see the player set up, load, focus, and drive through on the pitch and hit it. And I want to see swing mechanics. So give me that. If you're a positional player, same thing. Give me half a dozen of you, if you're a shortstop, fielding 6-8 ground balls. And again, start off, near to the player that I can see the footwork, but spread it out. Show me that, as a shortstop, you've got range. What separates you from everybody else? I watch too many videos and I see 8-10 balls hit to somebody and they're right to them. Excuse me, at that level, anybody can handle a ball right to them. I want to see what else can you do. How far can you go backwards? How fast can you come forwards? Showcase yourself. Outfielders, same thing. Don't hit the ball right to the player. Let them run 30 feet and catch a ball. And just think through the process. What would a coach want to see? What's going to set me ahead of everyone else? Why should the coach take a second look at me? And again, edit it down to, about 4 minutes and make it a nice little package. And same with pictures, by all means. Give me the basics, front view and a side view showing mechanics, and show me, 8 pitches in a row that you can hit your spots. Velocity isn't a big thing with us. It's hitting those spots, and if you've got some spin, you're going to go a long way as a pitcher. And, show me that you can do that. If we're interested, we're certainly going to be knocking on your door and saying, we want to see more. And I'll adjust my schedule over the summer to go see somebody that I'm really interested in. And then I'll talk to the coach and say, hey, when is so-and-so scheduled to pitch? Or, is so-and-so out playing center field for you today? And I'll focus on that player. And it doesn't mean that I've got blinkers on. I found great players watching, a game and going, well, who is that? Geez, they're good. So, and I've approached players and they go, oh, geez, I didn't think I was going to play ball. Well, guess what? You'd be noticed. Just conduct yourself properly and work hard, hustle, and but yeah, get in contact with us because put yourself on our radar.
And so, what are these programs like when you get on these teams, and what can they expect if they were to get on a team, and what's the day-to-day life for a softball player at the collegiate level?
Rather intense at the start, especially if you're a first-year university student, because everything happens right at the start of the school year. Everybody brings in their players probably, say, the third week of August, more or less. School doesn't start until, a full week into September, and whether teams have tryouts or whether they've recruited for need, players are on the field and just meet and greet for the new players and trying to fit in. It's intense. There's practices every day at the start just to get everybody's learning curve up, and then Labor Day weekend is when we start our season. And so this year the season opens in Calgary, so for the 2 local teams it's at home, so nobody has to deal with travel, but you've got probably 5-6 games if you're a local team, and if you're an out-of-town team, for the teams coming in from Saskatchewan, they've either got a bus ride or a van ride out to Calgary, and so that's 6, 7, 8 hours to Calgary, and you play all weekend, and then back home, and then repeat the process the next weekend. In the meantime, you're going to school during the daytime, getting yourself through orientation and finding out where you're going through for classes and picking up textbooks and just learning who's living in residence with you and making new friends. And it's hectic. And then in the evenings, a couple times a week, every team will have practice again. And then Friday morning, second weekend, it's off to Regina and repeat the process and go through that. And then the following weekend, Saskatoon, and the following weekend out to Moose Jaw, and Briarcrest is hosting, and then back to Calgary the final weekend for playoffs. So it's busy, and for the 3 teams that be going to nationals from the WCSA, Thanksgiving weekend is going to be, again, a full weekend or 4 days of ball. This year it's out west. Saskatoon, University of Saskatchewan is hosting. So, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, really intense ball, and you've got to get your feet on the ground as far as school. You've got to know how to time manage. You've got to put everything in order and ask questions. If you're starting to feel swamped, ask for help. I know the bus rides out to Saskatchewan, University of Calgary, and to St. Mount Royal. We share buses. So you've got 30 or so student athletes on the bus, and the textbooks cracked open and the laptops open, and there's always somebody that's taken that course before. So if you're going, geez, I need help in biology or something, somebody knows what you're going through. And it becomes a very tight group real quickly. I've had parents ask, who's my kid going to be friends with? I said, don't worry, it'll take care of itself. The kids, bond real quickly. So they spend a lot of time with each other. So it comes together, and it's fun to see. At the end of the season, we're kind of tired of each other. But, we take a short break, and then we're back in the gym after. And the girls miss each other if they haven't seen each other for a few days. So it's fun.
And it's all there just to keep developing the game and keep offering more avenues and more roads for them to take. And who knows where that could lead going further after that.
The paths are incredible. I went to university back in the late 70s and 80s, and I look at the programs of study that are available now, and I'm going, wow. I've got players doing internships all over the world, or they've met people, and the opportunities have opened up here, there, and everywhere, whether you're working downtown Calgary or doing a transfer program at University of Adelaide in Australia. Those opportunities happen. You're going to meet people, you're going to start networking, and it is really, really interesting to see where these young ladies end up after school, or who knows, maybe school continues. We've seen doctors, we've seen lawyers come out of the program, and nurses and engineers and people, in baking and welding and just mechanical engineering, power engineering. It's just people that have moved on into veterinary studies. It's just amazing where the career paths take these ladies, and the one thing they remember is the friendships and the bonds that have been created by the years together.
But as you said, it all starts with them first, making that first contact and taking that initiative to get on one of these teams.
One of the things that I always told my own daughters, don't look back and say, I wish. Seize the bull by the horns and put something into motion. I became involved in the league in 2010. My daughter joined the University of Calgary by doing just that. She sent an email to the current coach of the Dinos and took the initiative herself and said, hey, I'm interested in playing. How do I go about it? And it seems simple, but a lot of kids are kind of nervous about it. And yet it's the best thing to do. If you're really, really nervous about it, as I said, we're at so many tournaments during the summer. Ask coach to approach us. And I know I've done it. George has done it. Carly has done it. We'll go make a presentation to the team between games for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and say, hey, come talk to us. And oftentimes even then the player won't, but they'll take our information, and then we'll finally get an email. Doesn't matter, whatever. Open that door for yourself. And that's the big thing. Don't go back, 5 years from now and say, I wish I had done that. Do it when you're 15, do it when you're 16, do it when you're 17. And, if you're a strong enough player, let's face it, it's a competitive situation. You've got to be a good player. But, if you're that type of athlete that we like, and we like your attitude and your work ethic, the door's open for you. Walk in there and seize it.
That seems like a perfect place to end this. I've kept you long enough, so I'd like to thank you, Randy, for taking the time to talk about your league and how people can get involved, because I think it's definitely the next step and great step for developing and keep moving these ladies forward.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew. It's been a pleasure, and By all means, just remind the players, anybody will be out there at GPLS games during the season. Come and approach us. If that doesn't work, check out the website and pull down the list of the coaches, and make an email. And you might be surprised where that 2-minute email might lead you and for the rest of your life.
So there you go, some good information from Randy on where you can take your career after you're done with the GPLS. And remember, it's on you to start that process. And he mentioned it multiple times about how you got to reach out and you got to send those first emails and those first contacts and those first phone calls. And you don't know where it could lead. It could take you anywhere. A lot of players from around the world, gone different countries, it could lead you to different places. You don't know where it's going to lead you. And if you're going to play university, college, if you're going to go to those places, you might as well continue your softball career because you're going to make lifelong friends there as well. So, just like you said, search out Western Collegiate Softball Association, find the teams, send the emails. There's Briarcrest, there's the Calgary Dinos, there's SAIT, there's teams you can go to that are going to be able to give you a future beyond what the GPLS can offer. And it's a good option. And I know the GPLS is working alongside the Western Collegiate Softball to try and offer some, different ways of helping to get into the league. Ask your coaches, ask your teams if you're any way you can to continue playing softball, because that's what matters. We want to keep developing. We want to keep ladies playing this sport and moving forward, because you don't know where it could lead. It could lead to national teams. It could lead to, NCAA. If that's where you feel like going, there's options available to you. You just got to search them out. So, like I said, Western Collegiate Softball Association, check them out, send them emails. Don't be afraid, get noticed. It's not hard. It is pretty that easy. Get the ball rolling for yourself. So that's going to do it for episode 3. Hopefully Caroline is back next week, which she should be, because no one wants to keep listening to me by myself. I'm Andrew Brethauer. Take care for another 2 weeks. We'll see you next time.